Europe is sounding the alarm about the continued disappearance of millions of insects from the environment, but don't worry, there are still plenty of yellow jackets swarming around Paris. United States of Europe making fun of the EU the American way. This week, the Global Climate Summit kicks off in Poland, and there were huge environmental protests this past weekend in Brussels, proving that those who care the most about the globe aren't necessarily great with maps. Now, the protesters could have gone to Poland or to the G20 summit in Argentina, but A, they didn't want to emit the CO2 it would have taken to get there, and B, they just hate Zaventem Brussels Airport. Meanwhile, there were also protests in France against a proposed diesel fuel tax. Not so much environmental protests, more like anti-environmental protests. The so-called Yellow Jackets protested by burning so much carbon it basically offset the potential gains of any diesel tax in the first place. French President Macron has now caved in to the demands of the protesters and suspended any proposed fuel tax. Instead, Macron has announced the creation of new fueling stations for diesel created by the Volkswagen Corporation. The new Dieselgate technology allows for the fuel that costs exactly the same. You just pay a little more for it. The Climate Summit kicked off in Poland with Sir David Attenborough saying the collapse of civilization is on the horizon, and soon the only habitat for polar bears will be environmental protests. But the point is, the world leaders who most need to hear these dire warnings aren't even there. For example, Donald Trump went straight back from Argentina to Washington, D.C., where he's now burning piles of paper trail connecting him to Russia. It's been proven that doom and gloom warnings are only so effective. What we need is more positive messaging to motivate people to make a real change. So to wrap up, here are 5 inspiring ideas that I've heard just in the past week. And since we know that some of the most effective marketing on the planet is to be trashed by Donald Trump on Twitter, we'll have the real Donald weigh in on the following. These guys from the Technical University in Delft want to turn every window into a solar panel. In fact, whole skins of buildings so that buildings can power themselves. Who needs solar-powered windows when you can have windows that are already perfectly covered in coal? The Great Bubble Barrier notes that 2/3 of all ocean plastic comes from our rivers. The problem is you need a barrier that can allow river traffic and fish to go through. So they've created a plastic tube on the river floor that shoots up air bubbles and gets all the plastic over to one side so you can collect it. We need to put a bubble around China. China bubbling, that's okay. But China twerking? No one wants to see that. At number 3, agroforestry. A lot of the world's forests have been clear-cut to make way for farming. But if you keep enough of the forest in the middle of your farms, you can improve your crop yields by apparently 600%, and you keep the precious biodiversity. Or we create a wall and keep the biodiversity out. If we run out of space to farm on land, there is plenty of farming to be done in the oceans, especially if you like seaweed called kelp, which can be used as a food additive in bioplastics and as biofuel. It's one of the fastest growing organisms on the planet, up to 3 feet per day. I hate seaweed. It's disgusting. I say, let's burn it. That's the point. It's a biofuel. And at number 1, the winners of the TEDx Amsterdam Award 2018, Mini Brew. These guys love beer, and they know that beer is mostly made of water, so they wonder why it's necessary to every year ship billions of liters of water over the water. These guys want to disrupt the entire beer supply chain by providing a mini brew kit, giving whole new meaning to the term, "It smells like a brewery in here." Beer is for losers. Diet Coke forever. So hopefully those are some inspiring ideas. Or, as a fallback option, a small nuclear war could reverse global warming for years. See, I told you, Donald Trump is the best way to save the planet.
Newsroom, it's a newsroom. Listen to the sound of the newsroom. Anything can happen in a newsroom. News, 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 news.